Starting out as a teen coding her MySpace page in HTML, Dr. Klaire Somoray never imagined she'd end up studying the psychology behind deep fakes and dating apps. But sometimes the most interesting careers don't follow a straight line. Professionally Psyched is the podcast that brings you cutting-edge psychology research and real-world insights from our psych community of clinicians, researchers, and educators alike. We're here to explore how psychology shapes our everyday lives and impacts the world around us. Hi everyone, and welcome to Professionally Psyched. I'm Jessica Muller, PhD candidate in Public Health at James Cook University, and before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record, and for me today that's the Bindal and Wulgurukaba peoples. And I pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and cultures from wherever you may be tuning in from across the country. We are bringing you some very familiar voices today for this week's episode. Whether you're a psychology student interested in tech, a tech enthusiast curious about human behaviour, or someone concerned about the societal impact of AI, this episode offers a fresh perspective on the digital future we're creating. Join psychology lecturer Dr. Dan Miller as he sits down with his colleague Dr. Klaire Somoray to unpack deepfakes, dating apps, the power of AI, and so much more. So grab your headphones and get ready to get professionally psyched about the fascinating world where psychology meets technology. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Dr. Dan Miller, a lecturer in psychology at James Cook University. And today I am interviewing Klaire. Klaire, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Dr. Klaire Somoray. I'm a lecturer in psychology, and I specifically lectures into the fourth year program.
So Klaire, can you tell us what your area of research is?
Sure. My interest in research is within the human technology or human AI interaction field. So, for example, I'm doing a lot of research with you, actually, Dan, within the area of deepfakes. Dan and I are also in a research group with other JCU academics that looks at people's well-being in the digital world, but we also look at digital interventions. So, for example, I'm currently doing a meta-analysis with Dr. Sam Teague, and we were looking at the longitudinal effects of digital media amongst young people's well-being. We call ourselves the DigiWell members. But I did my PhD in road safety, though, within the Center for Accident Research and Road Safety Queensland, better known as CARSQ in QUT. So therefore, I'm also interested in people's behavior in traffic and road safety settings. So you'll see my name in other works like self-driving vehicles and risky behaviors while driving.
Was it just psychologists working at that institution?
No, I worked a lot with psychologists, engineers, and IT. So it's a multidisciplinary background.
Yeah, broad range of skill sets.
Yes.
And you kind of have some of those IT type data analysis type skills.
Yes.
And is that where you learned that kind of stuff?
No, actually, I think I definitely got more interested in regards to data. IT I've always been interested in, and like computer technology, stuff like that. But with data, I definitely really liked it when I was doing my undergrad, but I developed more of my data and big data skills when I worked for the government in the Department of Justice, because we were looking at like millions of data sets in the court system. So that's where I learned a lot of my data wrangling skills.
So what kind of information would you get from those big data sets?
Basically, all of the offending courts or like any data that has gone through the court system from 2005. So all of like offending rate, what are the offenses that people have been sentenced for.
So you'd have millions of data points.
Millions and millions of data. Yeah. And it's the data that needs constant further cleaning depending on what research questions that you have. So for example, one of the first projects I did at DJAG, actually it was within the Queensland Sentencing Council, but one of the first projects we did is to look at stalking cases. So who are the ones usually kind of like common offenders of people who do stalking or been sentenced to stalking offenses, how it changed over time, etc.
So is that what they
Yeah.
mean when they say big data?
Yes. So data that is what we're using in psychology is like data that can fit in SPSS,
Right.
like like you to analyze data in SPSS large data sets, but I think there's always a limit. So you really need to use other programs, like for example, R. And another really important skill is the data wrangling skills, which is based on like SQL language, where you're actually trying to combine data sets. So for example, we needed to combine data sets from offending into when they were sentenced. So we want to be able to find the common elements and how this data are linked with each other.
Did you do classes to learn SQL, or is this self-taught?
So this is self-taught. I just learned it on the job. But I think it's still, I do believe like you need to have this kind of interest in the first place, and everything else you can learn on the job. And also just to communicate this data in a way that other people would understand, because you can have all of the technical skills on how to wrangle data, but if you don't know how to communicate it, and I believe psychology helped me, communicate the results to people, or for people in a way that people will understand.
Yes. So your job is to be a middle person that can bring together, the data scientist side and the psychology side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what led you to pursue this area of research?
When I did psychology, I didn't even realize that academia is a career option. So prior to doing psychology, I actually wanted to become a computer scientist. And I grew up on the internet like a lot of millennials. And so I was just like basically living on the internet for a good part of my teenage years. So I was a bit of a tech geek, and I thought that the internet was the best thing in the whole world. So when I was in the teenager, I learned how to code in HTML by personalizing my MySpace and Friendster. I don't know if you, if anyone who's
Yeah, I
listening
remember. Yeah, MySpace.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a big thing in Asia at the time. And this was like pre-Facebook, and you can personalize your page to show your personality. So I thought that by coding, like learning how to code, you can like showcase your
Oh, you could
personality to the world.
personalize it even more.
Yeah, so you can
Uh,
like make your page black. I was also an emo growing up, so my face was like black. The text was in red, but one of my family members had mental health issues in a later stage of her life. So I was like, okay, I wanted to understand what was happening with her. So I switched from computer science to psychology. I think now I would say that I'm just really going back to my initial dreams as a teenager, because I get to play with all of this like cool new tools and new technology. But I do think that I'm glad that I did this zigzag in my career and my studies, because I believe that doing psychology gave me that critical view of technology and understanding the element side of technology that we forget. So because of this, I tend to look more at the human side of tech, which I don't think I would have done if I just went completely into the computer science route.
so how come you started studying road safety?
That was a serendipity. I had a lecturer in my fourth year, actually, who had a lot of surplus in his research account. So he was like,
Okay,
do
good
you
problem to
do you
have.
want yeah, good problem to have. He was like, do you want to be a research assistant? So he actually went to me and offered me a job. And I was like, yeah, cool. And I just developed this really good working relationship with him. And yeah, I guess after my fourth year, I didn't really know what to do, because I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to keep going into the practice route. And so I started working with him. And early on in my studies, I understood that relationships with your supervisor is more important than the topic. And so I really like leverage on that.
And then so afterwards, you go straight into government after getting your PhD?
Yes. So I left academia for a while. I just thought to be like, okay, what else is out there? just wanted to see what's going on. And I thought, okay, now that I've seen it, I'm gonna go back to academia. I was like, I think academia is where I belong.
Right. So you get to JCU and you kind of want to move away from the road safety stuff.
Mm.
Where do you direct your attentions?
Yeah, I think definitely going back to that digital technology side of things. And I think what's really cool is when I get back to academia, all of this buzz around AI
Yep.
started happening at the same time. So I guess it's like, again, serendipity. But I'd like to think that because of my background and the way that it's so diverse, I felt like I have a good, different, and nuanced perspective to different things because I get to work with people from computer science and engineering and psychology. So, in some ways, I think I really like being that weird academic as well that doesn't really fit neatly into a box. I know Dan and I, we've talked about that, but sometimes that can be like a problem if you don't know how to sell yourself. So maybe that's
Yes.
sort of like where my next career move is to sort of like put all of this diverse perspective together in a way that makes sense to people.
Yeah, it seems like for career development, you kind of need like a clear narrative about what you do,
Yes,
right?
yes. But I do feel like it's a strength of mine because I get to see things in a multidisciplinary sense. And I feel like because it's so diverse, I never get really bored of the topics that I'm looking at.
Yeah,
Even with our deepfake research, I feel like there's so many ways you can look at it from a technological side, you can look at it from social side. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
so this deep fake stuff, hey, that's the stuff we collaborate on. How did that come about?
That came about again, serendipity, because I got locked out of my office in my maybe first 2 months at working at JCU. And Dan said, "Oh, hey, do you want to just wait in my office while you're waiting for your office to get unlocked?" And so Dan, you told me that you saw a TV show on,
I think I saw something on like ABC. It was like Four Corners
yeah,
or something. They were doing a report on deep fakes. I
deepfakes
just happened
about,
to have seen that last night, so
yes,
it's on my
revenge
mind
porn.
and I started talking about it. Yeah.
And we were like, oh yeah, no one is doing work on deep fakes. And so we started talking about it. I was like, oh, that's really cool. What I wonder if we can do an experiment around deep fakes. And then you actually found a paper, the Kobe's paper, and
Yeah.
you said, oh, this is a cool paper. Maybe we can try to replicate it, but actually give an intervention of telling people what to look for. Because what we've been seeing is that, okay, everyone is doing work on deep fakes, but no one has actually tested the intervention of if you tell them what to look for, will that help? And a lot of agencies, like even eSafety, so eSafety is a agency in the Australian government that specifically looks at digital safety of people online, right? And they gave this list of things to look out for. And so they said, okay, maybe look at the eyes, look at the face,
Look at the
look at.
shadows.
So we were like, okay, that's a cool experiment. Let's see if this intervention worked. And yeah, I guess the rest is history.
But it's also like we did the first study and we got like members of the public are like interested in this and ask us about it. So that all kind of like reinforced us to like keep going. Do you want to
Yeah.
cover your the Tinder study?
Yes, actually, that's it. Another area of research is my interest in minority groups. So I'm also doing a research with some of my students who have lived experience for being queer. And because I have this specific interest in digital technology and its impact in society and how we interact with technologies, I wanted to understand the impact of designs of apps like Tinder, Grinder, and maybe in some ways how the issues that we see in society reflect on these apps. You know, these technologies and apps perpetuate some of the biases that we already have as a society. So, for example, we are looking at the impact of masculinity and racism in regards to preferences of people who you would prefer to date. I would say only recently that I started thinking more of how my lived experience can sort of like fit more into my work. So this is definitely a new thing that I'm exploring. And if it doesn't go well, I'm just gonna be like, all right, back in the closet. Actually, maybe.
But you're right, the apps are set up in a way that allows people to be almost encourages people to be extremely vain, I guess, or
Yeah.
select partners on obvious physical attributes. And in that way, you can
Yes.
see how they could magnify things like,
Yeah.
racism.
And I feel like I have a optimistic view that if we can just get tech companies to be accountable for the app that they produce, then maybe we can build better solutions for everyone.
Mhm.
Because yes, we'll do work as a society to be better and make sure that we are reducing these biases that we have. But at the same time, I feel like tech companies can also build better apps that incorporate like solutions that doesn't perpetuate the harms that we already experience as a society. So for example, I know that Grindr has changed their app so that you cannot filter people by ethnicity anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
But the thing is, they've managed to automate moderation of whether somebody has a nude photo or not in their Grindr profile. But for some reason, they haven't had the chance to moderate profiles that has racist text in it.
Right.
That's my spiel on this kind of like tech companies. It's like, what's the barrier here? Yes, you've removed the ethnic filter, great. But what else are you doing?
Okay. So what do you see as the next big issue or area of research in psychology?
Good question. I think maybe it relates back to that human centric technology. I do believe that tech companies or even us, people who work in this area, just need to sort of like think about how to reduce the harm that society already has on a lot of people. And so if we can have more human centered designs, user centric designs, we will just have a better world overall. Like, for example, I know that Instagram now has this different solutions on teenagers' use of social media. I don't know yet whether it's a good thing or not. That's a very recent one that has been implemented, but it shows that if we make enough noise and we say like, okay, this is not a good enough product, then companies will change, especially since technology is going to become more ubiquitous in our everyday life.
Yeah, it's already almost reaching the point of saturation, right? Where for some people it is with them from the moment they're awake to the moment they're asleep.
Mm.
But yeah, it's really worrying that all these social media algorithms are built around engagement, right? That's what they want. They want to
Yes.
maximize engagement. And there's only a
Yeah.
few ways you can do that. And one is like you make people furious.
Yeah.
So
Make them feel something.
you make them
Yeah.
feel something. And obviously it seems like it's a lot easier to make people feel angry than, happy.
Yeah. My other thing is probably, I wonder, but maybe this is more social psychology, is how people as a collective can use that against these tech companies. Like
Oh, yeah.
like for example, I know there's a lot of people now that sort of like uses this attention economy, as they say, to sort of like show their values. So they talk about boycotting certain organizations, certain
Yeah, true,
companies,
true. Yeah.
and boycotting actually individuals as well, like celebrities, if they don't think that the celebrities' endorsement of certain people doesn't align with their values. I think that's a cool thing. It's kind of like, how can we use these tools to our advantage?
Thank you very much for joining us today, Claire. It's been really interesting.
Thanks for listening to Professionally Psyched. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support of our psych community. If you'd like to show your support or if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our emails, and don't forget you can listen to full episodes on Spotify.